Hey everyone, welcome to the channel and I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, we talk about history, crime and some mystery, so if you're interested in these topics, be sure to stick around. Anyway, let's get into today's case. William Shakespeare was a poet, playwright and actor who is still remembered to this very day for his celebrated and inspiring plays. Nevertheless, few people know his life story, and there are many myths and theories surrounding it. This includes his death, and one such tale claims that he died after a heavy night of drinking as a result of a hangover and fever. But how true is this? William Shakespeare was most likely born on the 23rd of April 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon, England. His parents were John Shakespeare, who worked as a glove maker, and Mary Arden. The couple had a total of 8 children, yet young William, who was their 3rd child, was the first to survive past infancy. All but one of William's 5 younger siblings would also survive into adulthood. Despite William coming from humble beginnings, his father John Shakespeare was skilled in his trade and made a decent living. As well as owning several properties in Stratford, he also served in various civic positions in the local town, including terms as an alderman and the chief magistrate of the town council. This elevated status allowed young William to attend the local grammar school, likely the King Edward VI School at Stratford. Here young William would have received an education focused on Latin grammar and literature, translating the works of great Roman poets and playwrights, as well as occasionally performing these. After completing his education at the age of 14, William would have continued to live in the family home. But this situation would change some months after his 18th birthday, as a result of getting the 26-year-old Anne Hathaway pregnant. Thus, the two quickly married in November 1582, and 6 months later, their first daughter Susanna was born. This was followed by the birth of twins 2 years later. From 1585 to 1592, nobody really knows what was going on with William Shakespeare's life. Historians refer to these years in his life as the lost years, and they have been the room for a great deal of speculation. Of course, the most obvious answer is that he remained in his hometown, and there is reason to believe this. For example, the writer John Aubrey recorded in 1681 that William Shakespeare had been in his younger years a schoolmaster in the country, possibly referring to Stratford-upon-Avon. It has also been conjectured that he worked as a lawyer's clerk or helped out with family business interests. Yet he may well have left home, maybe to join Queen Elizabeth's Men, which was a playing company or troupe of actors in English Renaissance theatre, or perhaps more radically, to become a soldier. In any case, by 1592, Shakespeare found himself in London, but the reasons for this move are unknown. One popular tale claims that Shakespeare had poached deer from a local landowner's estate, and in order to avoid conviction, he fled to London, where he would eventually establish himself. It wasn't long until Shakespeare gained a strong reputation in London as an actor and playwright. His first works had now been printed and published, and in 1594 he became a founding member of a company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. This company of actors would prove to be very popular in England at the time, and some years later, in 1603, the new monarch James I adopted it, thus changing its name to the King's Men. Shakespeare would remain with the company of which he was part owner of for the rest of his life. He was its dramatist, and he produced around 2 plays a year. These included great romances and infamous tragedies, which we have most likely heard of, or even studied some while in school. As his renown in London increased, his name was placed on the title pages of his plays, and people from all social classes would pay to see him and his company perform. Due to his success on the stage, by the early 1600s, Shakespeare had become quite a rich man. This allowed him to purchase a house called New Place in 1597, which was the largest in his hometown of Stratford. Although Shakespeare made his living in London, he wouldn't buy a property in the city until many years later, preferring to stay in various lodgings. Shakespeare likely went home to Stratford when he could, which was a journey of around 2 to 3 days, and he was known to stay with his family for a period each year. In 1601, Shakespeare's father died, leaving him the family home in Henley Street. He rented this out and continued to invest in property, buying 107 acres of land the following year. Shakespeare would continue writing and performing for the remainder of his years, and in 1613 he purchased an apartment in Blackfriars in London. It's believed that Shakespeare was mainly living back in Stratford during his final years and had retired, but he continued to visit London regularly and most likely continued to work, albeit to a much lesser extent than before. During the last months of his life, Shakespeare's family was involved in a scandal, as his daughter Judith's husband, Thomas Quinney, had been unfaithful and gotten another woman pregnant. As a result, he was forced to do penance. Consequently, Shakespeare amended his will on the 25th of March 1616 to protect the interests of his daughter. Yet just weeks after, Shakespeare would pass away. William Shakespeare is believed to have died on the 23rd of April 1616, aged 52, in his home in Stratford. Yet the cause of his death is unknown, which has led to a great deal of speculation. One of the most popular and colourful stories surrounding Shakespeare's death comes from the vicar of Holy Trinity Church, John Ward, who about 50 years after Shakespeare's passing wrote that Shakespeare, Drayton and Ben Jonson had a merry meeting, and it seems drank too hard, for Shakespeare died of a fever there contracted. This story has become somewhat of a legend regarding his death, as a session of binge drinking with his fellow playwrights certainly sounds like one way to go out. One could argue that this story is backed up by the contemporary poet James Mappby, because in a lyrical tribute he suggests that Shakespeare had an abrupt death. He stated, "We wondered, Shakespeare, that thou wentest so soon, from the world stage to the grave's tiring room." However, most view this as circumstantial, and agree that the story of a wild night out with friends was simply a folk tale passed down the ages in Stratford. But if he didn't die suddenly after a night of drinking, was he perhaps expecting his death as a result from illness? Many scholars believe Shakespeare was ill for a time prior to his death, and point to the fact that he dictated his will just 4 weeks before he passed. In the 17th century, people would always write their will if they believed death was near, and his signature from the time looked shaky, further indicating he was in a delicate state. It has often been suggested that he died from typhus fever, since Shakespeare's house backed onto a stream, where people were much more likely to contract it, but again it's impossible to be sure. One interesting thing to note regarding Shakespeare's will was that it begins describing himself as being in perfect health. It should be noted that his will was initially made in January 1616, but this was just a draft version, and scholars believed that by the time he signed it 2 months later, he was probably quite ill. Shakespeare likely died alongside his close family in privacy. He was survived by his wife and 2 daughters, and left the bulk of his large estate to his eldest daughter, Susanna. Shakespeare's will scarcely mentions his wife, but she was probably entitled to 1/3 of his estate automatically, and in it mentions leaving her "my second best bed," which would have been their matrimonial bed. No one knows what his last words were, and there are no known reports of his demise. Nevertheless, before he passed, Shakespeare did write a small passage to be inscribed on his tomb. Shakespeare's epitaph reads, "Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones." Shakespeare was buried in the chancel of his local parish church, Holy Trinity Church, thanks to him having bought a tithe deed for £440, which granted him this right. Shakespeare has been commemorated in many statues and memorials around the world, and his work continues to be celebrated. His obscure life has led to countless theories which continue to be debated to this day, most notably the Shakespeare authorship question, which argues that Shakespeare's work wasn't his own, and that the real author didn't want to accept public credit. Thank you everyone for watching this video on William Shakespeare and his death. Let me know what you thought. Do you think he did go out with his friends and died the following day, or do you believe that he had an illness for various weeks before he died? If you have any suggestions, also leave them in the comments, and I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next video. Thanks.